This Week in Connecticut with Dennis House starts now.
Welcome to This Week in Connecticut. Greetings, everyone. I'm Dennis House. Election 2023 is in the books, except for the state's largest city. There were some big winners, including in Waterbury. The mayor-elect is with us today. A rough night for Connecticut Republicans. What do they have to do to win again? We will ask Themis Claridis. Plus, a long lawsuit over Duncan Park is finally over. Fasten your seatbelts for a building boom ahead. And Veterans Day, the toll losing a loved one in combat takes on Gold Star families. But first, the 2023 race. Democrats won the mayor's races in Hartford, New Haven, Middletown, Waterbury, and New London, Manchester, and several other communities, and flipped Republican seats in Derby, Wethersfield, and Danbury. Republicans won in New Britain, Bristol, Rocky Hill, and Ansonia, but overall it was a tough night. More on that in just a moment, and we'll talk about Bridgeport on Capitol Report at the bottom of this hour. But first, one of the big winners from Tuesday night, Democrat Paul Pernaruski, who was elected mayor of Waterbury. Joining me now is the mayor-elect of the brass city of Waterbury, Paul Pernaruski. And Mayor-elect Pernaruski, good to see you here in the program.
Thanks. It's great to be back with you again. We started out our campaign here, and it's nice to be back now that we're done.
Well, good to have you back, and it's always great to win. You're very excited about
yes,
that, obviously.
Very much so.
Let's talk a little bit about the first thing you want to do when you take over.
Listen, I mean, we've got three things that we talked about throughout the campaign that we're going to really focus on is working with the police chief to try to continue pushing some of the bills up in Hartford to tighten up the criminal code so that we can keep the people, the recidivists off the street. Continuing the push for economic development. There's some work going on downtown. We want to make sure we continue that. The brownfield remediation and education, I think, an area that we just really have to focus in. We've got some great programs, but we have too many kids who just aren't getting through the process, and we've got to really work on it. And I think a lot of that is going to require us to engage families and caregivers to make them part of the process, and we have to really drill down on how we're going to be able to do that.
I want to talk a little bit about these census numbers. You've seen them. Waterbury was one of the fastest growing cities in all of Connecticut. How many people did you add in the last couple of years?
4,000 people.
4,000 people.
4,000 people, yeah, since the last census. So,
how does that impact city services? What do you have to add to accommodate that population growth? Because 4,000 is a big jump.
It's a big jump. We went from 110,000 to 114,000. So, I mean, when you're doing some of it, you don't have to do much. The same number of houses are there. We haven't added a ton of houses and stuff. So as far as the trash pickup, the roads and all don't exchange. What it really affects mostly is the schools, because a lot of those were young families that brought students in. And Waterbury's, we've got something like 19,000, 18,000 students in the city schools, and I think we're the only school district, or one of the few in the state, that actually increases year over year. Most of the school districts are going down. We keep going up. So that's the tough part. And, post-COVID, the two biggest issues are two biggest groups finding employees for police officers and teachers. So that doesn't help when you keep adding students in. But the good news is this year we're down 100 teachers. Last year we were down 200. So we're making some progress there.
Will you have to build new schools or add classrooms or teachers, obviously, right?
We need to add teachers right now. I mean, we've done a lot of work with the schools, so I think right now the capacity is there. We've put in a number of these brand new K-8 schools, neighborhood schools, and that's taken a lot of the pressure off the middle schools. And right now we're going through and taking a look at what we can do with the existing facilities and maybe how to better utilize them now that we've taken some of the stress off.
Where are these folks coming from, these new Waterbury residents?
They come from all over, but the vast majority of them have been from New York. They
fled during COVID.
They fled during COVID. They came here, and what's happened is a lot of people from Manhattan, they're not working every day in New York, so they can come here. They can commute 2 or 3 days a week. We've improved the rail service down to Bridgeport and on to New York. And once they get here, especially if you've been living in Manhattan, you have a young family, all of a sudden you have a yard, places where your kids can ride bikes, play basketball. And one of my neighbors across the street was telling me one of the nicest things is he's got 3 young kids. There's no downstairs neighbors to complain when 3-year-olds and 5-year-olds run through the apartment anymore. So,
what kind of trickle-down effect do you imagine that these 4,000 people will have on the city of Waterbury? Obviously, they're going to need places to shop and spend their money and restaurants.
Yeah, so I think, I think it's going to have a very good effect. They are, as I said, mostly they're young families that are coming in. They're very interested in the city. They really enjoy living there. We're seeing, you know, there's an influx of people moving into downtown Waterbury. Right now, we've got about 33 market rate apartments that have opened down there that are all full, and there's a waiting list. We've got a couple of developers, about 3 or 4 of them that are working down there. I think in the next year, you're going to see well over 100 new apartments in some process of coming online. So you'll see that start to drive some of the downtown businesses to come back. And so I think, you know, they really seem engaged, and if we can make sure that we keep them engaged and become part of the process, I think they're going to be a real benefit to Waterbury.
What is your vision for downtown Waterbury? Because a lot of people have complained about businesses leaving and closing over the years, and on certain days it's kind of desolate.
Yep. And my headquarters was, you know, was right in the heart of downtown on Bank Street, so we saw that, you know, every day. But I think, you know, there's a different movement. When I was growing up, the big push, and even the years before that, was for everyone to move out to the suburbs, to have the house with the big yard. That's changing today. People my age bracket, kids are growing up. They want to come back to like downtowns where they can walk to stores and restaurants. And young people don't want to drive anymore. All of the things that we grew up that were so, you know, milestones for us are not for them anymore. And they're looking at the downtown. So I think you're going to see an influx of residences in what used to be offices downtown, and then you'll see a lot of those shops on the lower levels are going to be more like boutique shops and restaurants, coffee shops that are going to come downtown to meet the needs. And I think that that's what can be down in Waterbury. The other big driver we have down there, and we're very lucky, is the Yukon branches in Waterbury. It's right downtown now. We've got a great new director down there, Famiko Hoft, who's really pushing very hard. That's going to become the Allied Health Center for Yukon. So that's what the campus is going to be down there, which is a great synergy with Waterbury. And so I think you're going to see that drive a lot of young people down there as well, which the young people in the downtown makes a huge difference.
Let's talk a little bit about crime, because Waterbury is not immune to some of the things we've been seeing across the state, the car break-ins particularly. People are very concerned about that.
Yep.
What's in your agenda in terms of trying to tackle that problem in the rest of
the car break-ins are mostly driven by juveniles. That's the younger folks are committing those crimes, and we know that it's a percentage of a smaller percentage of people committing most of those crimes. And what's happened is the change in the juvenile laws has created a revolving door effect, and a lot of these kids are getting picked up. They're being let out the same day. They know they're getting out. It's like a big joke to them. And you know, Mayor O'Leary has been working with the big city police chiefs, the big city mayors and the police chiefs, to try to make some changes in the laws in Hartford. And that's why, for the car thefts and the rest, we've got to really work on tightening up the juvenile laws. Not because we want to send young kids to prison for a long time, but we've got to have ways to, when we catch them, to get them into programs, to get them into anger management, to get them into drug treatment and other things that can help them, put them on a different path. And that's got to be a change in the state law to allow the judges to do that. With the adult crimes, it's the same thing. There's a lot of pretrial release. About 70% of people picked up on violent crimes have a record of violent crimes. So we've got to figure out a way to get them and keep them locked up.
The new era in Waterbury begins on December 1st. He is Paul Pernaruski, the new mayor of the Brass City. Congratulations. We'll see you on here again.
Definitely. Thank you.
And when we come back, Republican reaction to election night.